Good morning from my side. I'm happy to welcome all participants to this only English session in this AI panel. And we will talk now in the next half an hour approximately about Austria as a hub for international AI companies. My name is Marion Biber. I'm the Managing Director of Invest in Austria, the Department for Foreign Direct Investment Promotion at Austrian Business Agency. And it's our task to convince and support foreign companies and founders that are interested in the business location Austria. I think together with Clemens, we put together a really interesting panel for you today, comprising, on the one hand side, a young startup with Ben, which is now being part of INITS, one of the most successful tech incubators in Europe. Then we have an example with Crayon and Florian of an international company that decided to set up a center of excellence here in Austria, and an Austrian corporate that originates from a TU, a technical university spin-off, and was able to acquire international partnerships, for example, with Samsung, with Wilfried Steiner from TTTech. So I would like now to pass the word to my panelists and would ask you to introduce yourself with a short statement. We go through the list in alphabetical order. So Florian, would you like to start introducing Crayon and your, let's say, tasks at Crayon?
Of course, I hope you can hear me all right. So excellent. Thank you for having me. As said, Florian Berger. I'm running the data and AI practice in Crayon globally, and I'm really happy to have the chance to as well talk a little bit about Crayon today. So because I guess there's still many people who have no clue about what we do. Crayon is a 20-year experienced company. It's listed on the Oslo Stock Exchange with a market cap of around 1.3 billion euros, 3,300 employees in 50 offices around the globe. Strong relationships with vendors like Microsoft, AWS, and others, and we're serving right now about 70,000 customers around the globe. Actually, Crayon is I know we're talking about AI here, but Crayon hasn't started as the AI company. We're really known for these optimizing tech ROI, right? So we have best class benchmarking and cost optimization basically on licenses as well as cloud consumption. There is another very key service. We accelerate the cloud adoption. So we serve our customers basically end to end, really from cloud strategy, migration, modernization, and even managing kind of the whole operations on the cloud stack. But more important, since 7 years, is the data-driven enterprise is very key on our agenda. It's just a very logical fit of what we have done in the past, where we're trying to really unlock the value of data with developing or cloud data platforms, AI-powered solutions, and obviously support on MLOps, like the whole operations of machine learning infrastructure. So this is where we set up innovation centers around, or a center of excellences around the globe. And one of them is in Vienna, and I'm more than happy to talk a little more about it and why we made this decision to set something up here.
Okay, thank you, Florian. We will discuss this just in a moment. So Ben, may I pass the word to you and for a short introduction of yourself and also about your really interesting startup.
Yeah, thank you. So originally I'm from the US and I'm the founder of Molexar, and what we are doing is we are using AI to think creatively. So we are generating architecture assets primarily for the video game and visual effects industries, and we are trying to see if an AI and a machine learning system can learn these kind of formal and spatial properties that we traditionally associate with creativity. My personal background is that I moved to Austria to take my master's degree in architecture, and I've been fortunate enough to have some nice exhibitions in some museums, primarily in Europe and the US and a little bit in China. But I was genuinely pretty shocked when I entered the architecture profession at the limited role that new technology plays in the design process. So that was a major influence in then trying to incorporate things like machine vision and machine learning into an architecture design process. And through this, I arrived at the INITS high-tech incubator in Vienna, which I think we'll speak a bit more about today. And what we are now doing is we basically take all sorts of different types of architectural informations, from traditional drawings to 3D models to images of buildings. And we have an AI engine that learns these different spatial and formal relationships. So if you're a game developer, from a reference image or mood board, you can very quickly go to 3D models and start to have a nice immersive concept of your game. I think one of the things that I found very exciting about this whole process is transitioning from a purely architectural look on this tool and how this might be used in built architecture into a move of digital architecture. But that's something that INITS has been very influential in. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Wilfried Steiner joins us today instead of Mr. Poledner. So thank you for joining as well. You're working for TTTech Labs. So I would like to pass the word to you also for a short introduction of yourself and TTTech.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Wilfried Steiner, and I have a background in computer science. So I did a PhD at TU Wien and did a postdoc in Menlo Park at SRI International. And this was all already while I was working at TTTech, which has been founded more than 20 years ago as a spin-off of TU Wien. And our core focus is on safe and secure technologies. So you would find our technologies and products in planes, in cars, probably also some railways, and in typically applications that are life critical. We are focusing on the network aspects, so we are building chips for that. We are programming network protocols that ensure that data is reliably transferred in these big transport systems like big airplanes, but also software platforms that ensure that tasks and applications are running as expected inside your car. So the company is quite old, and AI has not been in the DNA of the company, but in pretty much all of our business verticals, we see AI becoming, of course, one of the key elements and key technologies for the future. So what interests us quite a lot is how can we ensure safety of the overall system and also security of the overall system if the system implements some form of AI in whatever form it might be.
Okay. Very interesting topics. I would like now to go to the innovation AI ecosystem here in Austria. One of the strengths of the business location is, of course, innovation here in Austria, also the funding system for innovation. Probably it's not so well known that Austria has already an R&D growth of the GDP of 3.23%. And with that value, we are number 2 in Europe. And we as ABA see that it's really attracting international companies. So Florian, you mentioned in your first statement that just about 2 years ago, Crayon started a Center of Excellence for AI machine learning here in Austria. Can you explain a bit deeper why your company decided to set up here, especially in Austria?
Well, yeah, that's always a kind of a fun topic, because I always double check myself what happened. You know, it's like some would say, I mean, you live here. I mean, you know, that's most likely the decision why it's made. But this is yes, my wife loves it. To be honest, not to fly around all day long, but in the end, honestly, you know, I would say the sweet spot with Crayon is that people listen. And they listen to humans basically, and that's what I guess gave us the opportunity as well to double check many other regions as well, to see where it would be the best fit for us. And I was in the lucky position myself, you know, being part of setting up innovation centers around the globe in the past, like seeing the US, London, where I spent some time, as well as like Singapore and Japan, etc. So that said, it's super competitive, right? And to be honest, Vienna is still a little hidden, you know, and that gives us some advantage. I'm not going to say there's no competition at all in hiring and so on. I mean, there is, but still, I mean, I would say we have shown that, like, we just in 2 years we were setting up basically from 1 headcount to 40. In a very short time, with obviously a lot of strategic things we have to handle, or we had to handle in the past, etc. But we have very good people here in Austria who want to stay in Austria, not going to go away or move to somewhere else. But on the other hand, they want to love to stay at home. And as I said, 40 people, 18 different nationalities, shows as well that Vienna is a very attractive place to move to, and that's what we see a lot. Even we don't really force people to move to Vienna. They can basically work from wherever they want. Our chief data scientist sits in Spain, like people we have in Norway, obviously, and elsewhere where they just have their home base, their families, and all these kind of things. So in the end, still, a great place to be, and people just from their perspective just said, well, I would love to go to Vienna, actually, right?
So you mean that the key decision factors were the talent on the one hand side, and on the other hand side also the attractiveness of Vienna itself as a quality of life.
Exactly, absolutely. You get something for your money. This is great. You have a great work-life balance, and you still have a chance to live in the best districts, etc. So this gives a lot of opportunity, I would say. And to be honest, airport, great. 2 hours, you're almost everywhere in Europe. Germany is very close, which is still our key market, or one of our key markets, or most important markets for the future. So, so that gives us a lot of room, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Florian. So Ben, you're the best example of, let's say, an expat that decided to stay here in Vienna. And you created Molexar out of inits, Vienna's high-tech incubator. How did you benefit from it, and can you share some of your highlights?
Yeah, for me, inits has been a really excellent experience. Basically, when I arrived at a point that I had a technological innovation, at least in a proof of concept stage, and I had an idea, but I didn't have a business. And I think there is a bit of a big disconnect here. So what I did is I enrolled or applied for and was accepted into the inits high-tech incubator. And what they provided is essentially a set of frameworks that you can go from an idea into something that really has a business model around it, a way to think about the market, a way to think about entering the market, scaling up and growing. And that's been particularly helpful. And I know that probably in a general sense, that's what most incubators are meant to do. But at inits, what was really helpful is I think that there was always a way of this kind of idea of resorting back to a framework and then a network of people that can help you implement that framework. Because oftentimes you're unsure how to get started and you just need a way of thinking about things. For example, for us, what was particularly influential is we started these kind of customer interview process, which inits is believes very firmly in this kind of lean startup approach. And coming as an architect to this process, I had imagined that our tool would primarily be used for the built environment. So we can run, for example, since we are a data-driven design process, we can run environmental sustainability analysis, we can run structural analysis. And I always imagined it as this kind of tool for built architecture. But as part of the process, we spoke to urban planners, visual effects artists, and game developers. And the game developers showed us immediately, you could realize immediately that they saw the value proposition in a very strong way and had a desire for such a tool. So one in particular that always stood out with me, he told us, look, I designed more games, more architecture in a single game than an office does in 10 years, and I don't have any training as an architect. So I really need a tool like this in my development process. And so from that, we pivoted the business, and having the support of inits there was incredibly helpful, because all of a sudden you were thinking about one way to go, and now at first glance it seems like everything has changed. But in fact, many of your core principles, your core technology hasn't changed. It's just about how you approach the market and how you think about it. And I think our success today is largely a result of that change of market. It opens up a lot of new opportunities for us. And not to say that in the future, as we grow, we probably will, continue to expand and grow into the built environment again. And there's so many possibilities within the metaverse and visual effects. But having that focus and framework and support, also not just support in terms of the incubator, but the network that the incubator offers you, I'm speaking to you now from office space that the incubator provides us. So it's really a very nice way to make sure that at a stage when you're an early company, when you need the most help, you have all the resources that you won't typically have until you're a larger company.
And of course, the network can be very helpful, and therefore probably also the size of our country being quite small helps for making the first steps. Yeah,
and I think also, maybe this is a little bit what Florian was saying, but because the community here is small, that once you get to be part of that community, it opens up pretty much the entire community to you, as opposed to just your small niche.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So Wilfried, as we already mentioned, TTTech is a homegrown success story on my panel today. You flourished immensely here in Austria and attracted also a great number of investments from large corporations. What do you value most here in the business location, Austria, and what enhanced also your rapid growth over the last 20 years?
Well, I think first of all, I fully have to agree with Florian and Ben what they said on the attractiveness of Vienna as a city. I mean, it's attractive both for the employees and for the clients. So that the employees they value a lot the quality of life. So I think Florian said you really get something for your money, and then whoever has lived in any other city in the world could not just agree more to this statement. It's a fantastic infrastructure, safety. The social security system that we have in Austria is still one of the best in the world. So I think employees immediately see that. And therefore, we typically don't have a problem to convince new employees to come to Vienna. Also, of course, we also see that people stay wherever they are in the world and do most of their daily work from home office. It's also attractive to our clients. First of all, because they also like to come to Vienna for the culture. But then our clients, particularly the German OEMs, car OEMs, they are not too far away. So we can easily travel to them. They can travel to us. So there is a good opportunity for face-to-face interaction, which is still very necessary. And although we can do much of our daily work through virtual settings, I think another lesson learned is that it will never replace the physical and personal contact entirely. What comes together, what needs to come together to accelerate the rapid growth, I think there are a ton of factors. And first and foremost, I guess you have to be in an industry and business segments that have a scalable growth. And then for that, we are happy that we are following mega trends with safety and security. We see this everywhere in the Internet of Things. But also in the aerospace market, the space market, where we are part of human-manned missions to moon and beyond. But we also see it in software-defined cars and automated driving. So all of those trends give us a lot of opportunity to grow. Then we are able to leverage the reputation that we gain through the traditional industries like aerospace and space to the automotive domain and newer domains like industrial automation, and have the great luck that we can base our products and technologies on basic research, or baseline research, fundamental research that has been conducted at TU Wien. Then, of course, you need successful business models and long-term trust of our investors in what we are doing. And of course, it is an instrumental and a key element in working together with funding agencies here in Austria, but then also globally and particularly on the European level scale.
Okay, thank you. Well, you already mentioned your diverse workforce. You have about 2,000 people worldwide. How many of them are based here in Austria, and how easy is it to find qualified labor in the high-tech sectors, also compared internationally?
No, I mean, I think it's even 2,300 by now, and out of them, there are about 800 in Vienna. And of course, it's difficult, as everybody we will perceive that, to find good talent that actually bring the company forward. But I think we are in a very lucky position here as well. So we have also, I believe, more than 60 nationalities inside the company. People are very happy and very like to work very much with us on our projects, on our products, on our technologies. I'm doing a lot of personal interviews with potential employees, and Vienna is almost always a plus. So they always like to come to us. We also like to work close with universities, and we have a strong heritage with TU Wien. We are teaching classes there on dependable system architecture. And actually, we have in our plans for next year to again strengthen our relation with the academic sector, in particular here in Vienna. And we hope that this will be much easier and successful after the COVID crisis.
Okay, thank you. Florian, Florian Rosenberg, an Austrian who originally was part of the Center of Excellence, is now CTO of Crayon. Well, of course, that's wonderful news and an example also of the excellent workforce that we have here in Austria. What does this mean for Crayon Austria here?
Well, yeah. So, Flo, if you listen in, man, well deserved again, right? So, Florian and I, we were kind of setting up everything together. So now the reporting lines kind of changed. That's the most change, I would say, for me in common. But no, but I would say it shows that we have done something right, and gives more opportunities to the location. I mean, we're not just having like the Austrian subsidiary, which everything started, like, I guess it was 2014, having the sales organization and the core services kind of delivered out of here, but as well as having now the Center of Excellence for Europe, or even EMEA, actually, for delivering AI-powered solutions, cloud data platform for our clients, basically in these regions, as already the biggest team here, and now CTO office in Vienna from a global perspective, as well as soon in December we're going to start the next big thing. We have our modern workplace services stream globally managed out of Vienna. So it shows that, and honestly, it shows me as like representing a general manager here as well, that I need to look for the next for a new office again, which gives us a lot of room for the future to really stabilize that kind of location here in Vienna.
Yeah, that's great news for the business location, of course. That's also what we as AV are looking for. So, Ben, you came to Austria to work at the university and then obviously decided to stay here and found your startup here. What were the main reasons for that decision to stay here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably somewhat twofold. One is just the whole ecosystem for startups here, especially deep tech startups, is really supportive. So not only INITS, which I spoke about, but also some of the other funding agencies, which we've been fortunate enough to be supported by. So there's a whole ecosystem, I think, around supporting an early stage startup, especially a deep tech early stage startup, during the phase at which you're prototyping, you're innovating, you're trying to create something new, and that's a very difficult and challenging stage in the process. But I think the second thing that was particularly exciting for us is that the creative community, especially the creative and tech community in Vienna, or in Austria, I would say generally, not just Vienna, has been very helpful to our project. So in our stage, we do a lot of testing. We use a lot of sometimes freelancers for smaller one-off games or demo projects. And what we found is that Austria has an incredibly creative game developer and VFX, visual effects and architecture community that are very good at focusing on both kind of technical skills, so people like technical artists, and the creative side of things. So that's been really helpful for us, because I think when we look at our market, it essentially means that Austria is a really good place to enter the market, to start to grow and figure out how we should develop in the right way. And then, of course, as we scale out globally, there are other larger companies in the US and China that will be part of our core market. But I think that you can't start immediately going to these companies, or you risk a lot immediately going to these companies. Whereas the Austrian ecosystem, that seems to be much more inclusive and fostering growth. And I think that has been pretty key to our success. And I think it will be key to our success going forward as we scale up.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would come to a short last round of questions as time is already running out. Ben, you already touched on the topic of the funding landscape here in Austria. And I think we have a very well working funding system with the national institutions such as FFG for research and development and AWS. So how are your experiences working with those funding institutions, and could you share also a little bit of your experience with the AWS program Trustworthy AI, which is unique in Europe?
Yeah, so I think in general, the real benefit of the funding agencies here is that there are so many different funds that allow you to figure out what's your stage of development, what do you really need to accomplish with the funding? Is it an R&D process? Is it an innovation process? And there will be a funding solution for that. In our case, what we've focused on is a trustworthy AI application for our AI process. And we've done that through as you mentioned, the AWS Trustworthy AI grant program, which is not only unique to Europe, but I think, as far as I'm aware, pretty much unique anywhere in the world. And also, in my opinion, just really, really important. Because I think the outset of the program is that as AI becomes more proficient in all sorts of applications, we should be developing in a way that is done correctly and it is trustworthy, meaning that it prioritizes, human oversight of a process, that it's transparent, that it's fair, that it's secure and robust. And I think one of the things that people often find surprised in our application for this is why maybe a startup that's generating 3D architecture assets would focus so much on trustworthy AI. We don't have issues with data privacy that maybe something dealing with facial recognition might. But what I think has been so enlightening about the program is you realize that being trustworthy is really your competitive advantage. So everything that we need to do to succeed actually aligns very well with the principles of trustworthy AI. So we want to be a trusted design partner that someone will use, which means we need to make sure that the process has human oversight and supervision so that the designs they're getting are working. We need to make sure that the models are really realistic. So the process needs to be robust, and we need to make sure that we're able to generate everything from a Gothic cathedral to a modern skyscraper. And that means that we need to be very inclusive in how we collect data and train data and the models that we run. So we need to consider all of these diversity and non-discrimination aspects in the entire process. So I think our takeaway from that has been that this focus on trustworthy AI is not only very important and the right thing to do, but it's actually a huge competitive advantage to companies that implement the process so that you are making the right solutions and that you're developing in the right way. And the grant program has been exceptionally helpful in focusing all of our efforts on that.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Wilfried, you already mentioned your close cooperation with the technical university. And I think this is also one of the advantages here, that the universities are really open for collaboration with companies. And can you also share some of your experiences in working with the universities and also with the funding landscape that supported you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we are very grateful to the funding agencies here in Austria and in Europe to get the support since we exist, and also the continued support also as we grow. I mean, investing and developing a cutting-edge high technology is a very cost-intensive adventure, and everything that we can get as a support from funding agency helps tremendously. Yes, we are still in a lot of projects funded from the FFG and also projects from the Wirtschaftsagentur and different stakeholders in Austria. They cover basically all of our business verticals. Shall it be the IoT, where we want to ensure safety and security, but also Move on Track, which is an ongoing project that investigates safe self-driving cars. I think this is great. And also speaking about TU Wien, the attractive thing there is that a lot of discussions and output also can be generated in parallel to formal projects. So if you manage, and as we have done, to build up close relations to the university system here, to the academic institutions, there is already a lot of knowledge, know-how, cooperation opportunities that you can generate even without having a formal project in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting news also for our international participants to hear. Florian, my last question goes to you. So working for an international company, how does the Austrian funding landscape strengthen your position within the company?
Well, that's a topic. I would say we are not there yet. Why most likely we haven't had enough time. Very aggressive timelines, etc. But still, I mean, we did our first kind of touch and feel. We are part of an FFG funded project. It's called Fair by Design. It's very close to what Ben said. So we're in a consortium. We're basically taking care of developing the framework, to generate fairness, right, in the whole AI development lifecycle. So really end to end from an EDA till AI solution production, right? So and that said, this is like building the framework, and being part of that is obviously a key topic for us, because we believe we have to take that responsibility ourselves as being a company developing these solutions for customers, right? But on the other hand, for us, it's important as well, getting like funding structures, access, etc. But in the end, strategically, honestly, it's on the agenda to deep dive more into it, where I definitely will come back to you in the end, Marion, to double check what the potential is for as well a well-situated company as we are, right? So, but clearly interesting, especially of meeting cool other parties, in collaborating on these kind of environments is super important, because the whole AI game is a consortium-based game, right? So we're not going to succeed alone. So that's where it's great to meet the other guys on the market. So yeah, homework to do. Noted.
And of course, we will be happy to support you. And that's also one of our tasks as a ABA to give information about possible subsidies and collaboration, and to bring together and let's say establish contacts for foreign companies here in Austria. So thank you all of you for this interesting discussion, and I wish you still an interesting conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.